So micromobility is a term that might be new to a lot of people. It's a small electric or human-powered device such as a Lime bike or scooter. Now I can show you a bit of background on why you're seeing this item on your agenda tonight and kind of how we got here. So just to kind of walk through the timeline of this, in June of last year, King County Council, which this was sponsored by Councilmember Balducci, approves the language of e-bikes on King County trails, which that would include the Sammamish River Trail. In August of last year, the city of Shoreline began a pilot program with Lime, which is kind of when it caught our attention because they issued a press release for it and it sounded like it was going well. At that point last fall, staff started researching mobility options in partnership with Woodinville Wine Country. Adam over at the Wine Country has been talking about improving transportation in Woodinville for a long time, and we were excited to be working with him on finding some opportunities to do that. Last winter, staff met with the city of Seattle, Shoreline, and the cities of Bothell and Redmond to learn more about Lime, as they all have Lime operating within their cities. In February of this year, Sound Transit announced the downtown Redmond Link extension opening would be in May of 2025. And today, I'm here asking for feedback on a Lime pilot program connecting residents to Link for summer 25 and summer 2026. So there have been a number of city plans that have called for increasing transportation options in Woodinville. I want to walk you through a few of them and show how this could be a possibility to help advance those initiatives. So in the strategic plan, we call for increased multimodal transportation network and engage regional transportation connections. In the economic development plan, there is a call for better regional transit connections and ways to improve parking in the tourist district. And finally, the climate action plan looks to reduce greenhouse gas by increasing transportation options and improving cycling and pedestrian infrastructure. So there's been a myriad of reasons that have been compiled as to why this could be a strong option for Woodinville, and I'll kind of walk through how we can make this work for our community specifically. So Lime currently operates in Redmond and Bothell, and when the city met with both of those teams, they provided highly positive reviews of their interactions with Lime as a company and their customer service for residents and businesses. The program is cost neutral. A future contract for council consideration would include fees that would be paid to the city, which at Redmond, it's roughly 15 cents per ride, which we would likely be pretty similar to what Redmond is at, to cover administrative costs. And we hear pretty much on a daily basis that the business community and residents are seeking parking relief and increased transportation options around town. Some additional rationale is the Sound Transit Link extension opening in May would provide a safe commuter access via the Sammamish River Trail, and reduced reliance on personal vehicles helps advance sustainability efforts, and the implementation can be done in a way that works for our community. And I think that last point is really important. When we have had some conversations with cities and Lime, I think this technology's gone a lot farther than when Lime first rolled out into cities, and you saw a lot of that sort of mass backlash. They've kind of found ways to curb a lot of those issues, which kind of leads me into my next point here. So setting some parameters. If we want this to be successful, there needs to be parameters in place that take into account some of the intricacies of what makes Woodinville unique. And a couple of those can include ensuring devices do not litter streets and sidewalks being a top priority. The city will establish geofenced parking zones, and that is essentially on your Lime app, it is creating a parking space similar to what you see in the photo here, of that being the only spot that you're allowed to end a Lime trip. Meaning that if you don't end your trip within that parking zone, your card on file will continue to be charged. And parking zones are precise and can be minimal in size. Here's an example of a very small one, and it could be roughly the size of a parking spot as well. There can be highly specific to what you're looking for. The city can also establish no ride zones and areas of reduced speeds. which I know was important to a lot of folks as well. And I knew this was going to be kind of tough to see, so I printed it out at your seat as well. Here you can see the North Redmond, you can see North Redmond, unincorporated King County, Woodinville, and Bothell. Should this program come to Woodinville, riders could enjoy seamless commutes along the Sammamish River Trail, or regional visitors would have a new option for coming to a summer concert or visiting a winery. As you can see, the new two-line station is right on the Sammamish River Trail as well, which would make riding the link a safe experience separated from traffic. So locally here, we could consider initially rolling geofenced parking spots out at publicly owned parcels, such as perhaps the Civic Campus for things like the sports field and the farmers market, Wilmont Gateway Park for trail access and events, or even the park and ride for first last mile connections. DeYoung Park would also allow folks to ride their scooter over or bike to grab something from the grocery store or pick up lunch without having to get in their vehicle. These conceptual parking zone locations were selected because they have bike lane connectivity. It's a little bit tricky to see on the map here, but all of the spots that are sort of recommended here are all connected by bike lanes, which I thought would help curb the risk of people getting on the sidewalks. So these concepts were selected because they have bike lane connectivity, which is an initiative that we're hoping to continue to expand bike lane networks across the city. And let's see, so before a program was rolled out, we heard some great feedback from the Chamber of Commerce. They had a really great idea to host a community listening session to hear from other businesses on their experiences and concerns. The Chamber also said they'd be happy to co-host a session, a listening session, and I think if council is interested in continuing to look at this idea, that would be a really excellent idea to continue looking at. Some initial concerns from the Chamber, and I'm just going to kind of walk through these here, were people leaving their devices on sidewalks, taking away parking spots to create parking for the devices, the liability of riders using the devices at their business, and then the aesthetic of having them around town. I hope that I've talked through most of these concerns, but I can provide some additional insight on the parking zones as well, since that is an underlying concern of a couple of those points. The city would not be adding parking zones on private property. Initial parking spots would be proposed to be on city-owned parcels. If, for example, a development like TRF wanted to create a Lime parking area on their property where they've already invested in bike lanes and they're trying to attract visitors, they would be able to do that directly with Lime. And we spoke through the parking and sidewalk concerns with Redmond and Bothell, and both jurisdictions have any displaced device problem solved typically within 24 hours, which I think is fairly impressive.
Councilmember Best-Campbell.
So, Jarod, do you know of any programs that Lime has done for different income brackets? So it can be pretty expensive to travel on Lime. There's credit card requirements. Not everybody has credit for credit cards. There are some people who don't have documentation to get credit cards. Do you know of any programs that Lime has done to allow for usage? So vouchers, for example, that we can use. If we go by the Redmond model, they get $7,500 a year. Would it be possible for us to turn that money over and use that as a way to fund for the less fortunate so that they can take advantage of this easier route to the Link Light Rail Station?
Yeah, so I'm happy you pointed out Redmond. They have that program, as well as they have a rewards program they've rolled out for people to get reduced King County Metro fares through their Lime rides as well, which is part of that. They offer programs like free rides to the polls for elections, which is interesting. Lime itself, I would say, is a pretty large social impact arm that they are investing in, and I think there could certainly be an opportunity for us to request that if we brought a contract forward on some sort of program that would help folks get on Lime and get to and from work without. It's pretty cool if you think about it. If you could save you from having to purchase a car, the cost savings could be really big, and I think we could emphasize that for sure.
And then I just had Sort of tangential questions. It sounds like there's two separate uses that we're thinking about for Lime. One of them is for transit, and obviously it's only in the summertime because we know what winter is. But is it going to take away from ridership on a bus such that we're going to lose the bus service? Are we going to see a lot of people? And again, this is what the pilot study is hopefully going to tell us. But I got to thinking about where the city makes our money, and that's destination-based sales tax. And even with a bike, you're not going to be able to carry wine. So if we send it home, I'd like to see a difference of, is it going to change people's spending habits in terms of them coming to Woodinville? Will we bring in new people who are going to come and taste and spend here? Or are we going to drive more of the product to be shipped elsewhere, which means the sales tax is elsewhere? I love the idea of offering an alternative for people to get to the link. I think that's important. But I do want to be mindful if we are going to be, when we go through the comprehensive plan and we have more affordability, to have places that people can take part in these projects too. The part with multimodal transport, I think we need to have multi-socioeconomic transport as part of that. So if we can get in and hear what Lime has done in other cities, if you could come back with some of that information, I think that'd be fantastic. Thank you.
Yeah, happy to do that. Thank you.
Councilmember Taylor.
Yeah, I like the idea. We're letting business drive this service instead of us paying for it. One question I have is safety. Do these bikes rent with helmets?
Yeah, they do not rent with helmets. You are required to have a helmet, and obviously that's the same. The enforcement's the same as it would be with a normal bike.
So yeah, that would be a concern, especially with the scenario that Councilmember Evans mentioned with the wine tasters driving around, under maybe influence of wine. We'd want to make sure they have the helmets and,
Yeah, that's a great point. I know I've seen some jurisdictions, they had programs where you could receive discounts if you showed evidence of having your helmet on or things like that. So I think there's some ways we could work that in to make sure that's added enforcement.
okay.
I'd like to weigh in on, I like the idea. I think that in particular, connecting us directly to Redmond, because we're the missing link in between Redmond and Bothell. I think that's a big part. And speaking of the link, I think that's another big part. I do have the concerns, and it sounds like we can mitigate those. I've been on the trail near Wilmot Park, and bikes are speeding through there pretty quickly. And I'm mostly pedal bikes, but bikes are speeding well above what the speed limit is. So we have the ability, particularly in that congested area, to throttle down the allowed speed. Is that what I'm understanding?
Yeah, that horseshoe right there at the park, I think would be a really great way to use that technology.
Okay, and then I also, whatever, I've been an advocate for this for a long time, but I don't like the old stereotype of the Lime scooters just laying all over the place, blocking sidewalks. They're ADA hazards, they're unsightly, trip hazards. So I like the idea that we need to be very diligent about where they need to be stored and can be operated. So I think it's a good benefit. When we were talking about the Wilmot Park stage, the kayak guy, What's Up Kayak, literally said the number one question he gets from people renting kayaks in Bothell is, can I come to Woodinville and go wine tasting? So I would assume the same dynamic would happen with other mobility issues, which I think would be a plus for our city. But we have a responsibility to make it as safe as we possibly can. So I appreciate the work on this.
Great. And then just kind of to wrap this up, I think sounds like we've had a good chunk of this conversation here. But, if this is something that council's interested in pursuing further, we're happy to continue moving forward on the initiative. And if that general interest is there, I'm happy to take the concerns we talked about tonight. And then if more come to mind, over the next couple weeks or so, I can communicate those over to Lime. We can come up with answers to the questions and, hopefully get some sort of program lined up with the link opening or soon thereafter to run a summer pilot program, because I can't imagine too many folks would want to do this in the winter.
Great. Mayor Randolph.
One of the things with regards to safety, which has been brought up several times, is definitely making sure within Wilmot Gateway that we're doing those slow zones. But I will also say that I can pedal 30 miles an hour on a bike. I have done that before.
So with the 50,000 rides that Redmond has, how granular can Lime get us in terms of where the bikes are going? So is it between Microsoft campuses? Is it in the downtown area? I'd like to see where the majority of rides are to see how people use the service. And based on how people use the service, we can maybe improve it by where we put the majority of bikes. So if most people use it at the park and ride, we put it at the park and ride. If most people are using it just to get from one end of 175th to the other, we put it there. So if we could get, since it's a pilot study, we can ask for any data we want. I'd like to see start point, end point, how long, just to get an idea, and then compare it to Redmond and see how Redmond uses it. Because if we're not seeing a lot of connection down to Redmond, that would imply that we really need to do everything we can to keep the bus service, because that really would be our only way to get there. And also understanding what businesses people are going to. Are you in a higher socioeconomic band if you're going to work on a Lime scooter versus a lower one? If they can tease out that information, if we can extrapolate it, I think that would go a long way for us to figure out how to make it more equitable. Because right now, I look at Lime and I think going down to Redmond, it would cost $10 and a bus is $250. So there is concern that not everyone have access to it. And if we could find a way to, I mean, maybe with some of our community grants, this could be a program that we start up, but whatever granular data you can get about where people get on and off and work versus play, I think that would really go a long way toward amplifying the data that we're going to get from this summer.